Greetings, Facebook family. Today is Saturday, April 19th. And I woke up this morning and I was kind of beating myself up. And I was practicing some form of self-abuse because I did not do the things that I felt I should have done yesterday. And so I had this cloud over my head this morning, and I realized I was being unforgiving. And unforgiveness is a form of self-abuse. And so as I looked at this and I realized what month we're in, this is April. And April is the month of two birthdays of two significant people in my life who I held hostage for years because I was unforgiving. And the first person, my mom. I think a lot of us go through this with our mothers where, we got holding them hostage and, not being as forgiving as we could be. And the second one was my children's father. So their birthdays are a week apart, many years apart, but a week apart. And so I had to look at this thing around forgiveness. Forgiveness is when you release yourself from the toxicity that we carry that can affect us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I am a witness to what happens when you are unforgiving. The first person, my mother, I had to practice forgiveness with her and be willing to forgive her. She had been dead for many years. She died at 48 years old. And my mother had mental illness. And as a result of that, I felt like I didn't get what I needed as a child. And so after her passing, of course, I had the normal grief, etc. And I was pregnant with my first child, my son. She didn't get to see her grandbaby and all of that. And I really never had time to process a lot of what was going on with my relationship with my mother. But I knew there was something there that I had to get to, not even recognizing that I needed to forgive her. And it started with forgiving myself. And when I began to forgive myself for holding her hostage and not being willing to see that she was not well, and as a result, she could not give me the things that I felt that I needed as a child, I started to free myself up. I was willing. I had a little willingness to forgive. And then I began to practice that forgiveness with her. And it wasn't a one-shot deal. I think the Bible says what? Peter says, how many times should I forgive, Master? 77 or 7 times 7 times? But anyway, it was a constant process of forgiving her. And I was able to do this after she passed. So the person does not have to be alive to do the forgiveness work. The second person, my former husband, it took a little bit longer, and it took me becoming very, very ill. The toxins physically built up in me from the anger, the resentment, and I was blaming. I had a lot of blame and just throwing stuff at him. But I also had a lot of stuff that I was carrying as well. I think betrayal, when you feel betrayed, whether it be because you had attached, your dreams to their dreams, or they took something from you, if someone said something about you. But really, betrayal, I think, is the big one that can be hard to forgive. But it took my becoming very, very ill to do that. And when I began to do it was when I started studying the Course in Miracles. I keep going back to this little book because it speaks about a little willingness. And that little willingness began to grow inside of me as I began to feel better and better and better in my body and in my mind and in my spirit. So the practice of forgiveness in both of these key relationships with my mom and with my former husband had to do with me actually seeing them in my mind's eye and having a conversation with them and releasing them from the bind that I had held them in, kind of like opening up the door and letting them go out of the door, not holding them hostage, and allowing them to be free, and in so doing, freeing myself. It was the end of the self-abuse for me. And it really wasn't about them now. It was about me, what I needed to do so that I could be free, so that I could feel better. And ultimately, I was able to not only just forgive, but as I've aged, I've even started to forget some of the stuff that came up that I felt like I needed to forgive. And I'm not saying that you need to forget. I'm not saying that this person ever needs to be in your life again once you do the forgiveness work. But it is about releasing them for your own self. I think someone said that, forgiveness is like, being unforgiving is like drinking the poison that you give to someone else. You're drinking, you're making yourself sick. Paraphrasing, but anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. So the second thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to forgiveness for me is that I was able to write. I wrote letters to my mother after she died, expressing some things and telling her I had forgiven her. And then I did the same thing with my ex-husband. Even before he made his transition, I wrote letters to him. Some of them I mailed and some of them I didn't. There was one I remember sitting in the windowsill in the kitchen, mentioning some of the things that I really loved about him and I appreciated about him that I had learned from him. I never mailed it, but I sat it in the window and I just expected that an angel would carry those words to him. And I do believe they did. The angels did carry those words. So that when he made his transition, we were good. All was well. It was at peace. During this time when we are isolated and stuck at home, is a really good time to do forgiveness work. It's a really good time to do meditations around forgiveness, to write letters, to just clear yourself and heal yourself. Many of us are fasting, we're exercising, we're doing all of these wonderful things for our bodies, we're being highly creative. But the real work is the work of the soul. And forgiveness is soul work. It's where you can begin to unfold and really work on being your best self. What good is it to exercise and eat right and meditate and do all of that if the toxicity of being unforgiving is sitting deep inside of you and you're unwilling to look at it, address it, and heal it? So it took a little thing, like not forgiving myself for yesterday being a bum and, binge watching TV and not doing some of the things I wanted to do, to trigger the fact that April is my moment when I need to do even more forgiveness work with these two people in my life who meant everything to me. And in the end, I didn't feel like I got what I wanted or needed, but I had to let them go. Because also, when you start to forgive, or when I started to forgive, I realized that I wasn't looking at things from their perspective. My mother was mentally ill. She wasn't well. So I had to remember that. I wasn't walking in her shoes. My former husband, he had a dream of the life that he wanted. the religion that he felt he was born to be in, a continent that he wanted to be on, a family situation, a family dynamic that would work for him. I wasn't walking in his shoes. So I had no idea really what he was called to do, what his soul called him to do. So when you put yourself in another person's shoes, it can also help you do some forgiveness work as well. So start with being willing. Start with being willing. Then practice it. Wish them well. Wish them well. That frees you as well. It frees you when you want the very, very best for them, no matter where they are or what they're doing. And recognize that it really isn't about them. It's about you. So look at where you are unforgiving, who you are holding hostage, what it is that you need to let go. Start forgiving yourself, and then grow on and move on to forgiving others. This is the perfect time to do it. You can't go nowhere. You can't do anything but be with you and the work that can change not just you, but the world. God bless you. Have a great day.